Welcome to another episode of Washington in Focus. I'm Washington State government reporter Carlene Johnson, along with our Western Washington reporter Spencer Pauly, who's written an article this week about some money, federal funding coming to Washington State, something that we've spent a long time talking about federal funding that might not be coming, but in this case it is, for some traffic safety improvements, road safety improvements. Lay this out for us. How much is coming and who's getting a chunk of this federal funding, Spencer?
Sure. We're here near the end of 2025, Carlene, and we've heard a lot from Western Washington, state officials, whatnot, being afraid of losing federal funding because of policy shifts with Trump coming into his presidency. And that includes shifts to federal funding from the Department of Transportation. Now, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said they were eliminating DEI, environmental justice requirements, as part of this Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Now, this probably raised some flags for Western Washington jurisdictions, but it seems like they're getting a good chunk of change this year, Carlene. So in the 4 Western Washington counties that I cover, that being King County, Snohomish, Thurston, and Clark County, they were seeing the combined $6.58 million for 2026, and this goes towards road safety improvements. Now, when you look at the WashDOT's database, it looks like 2025 already was a good year for a loss of or a reduction in fatal and serious car injuries. That was a 13% change from 2024 to this year. So far, as of this recording, there have been 1,316 fatal and suspected serious injuries in car crashes.
Right. So those are not all. That number in your article jumped out at me because I thought that's a lot. But now they kind of lump those. They lump those together, right, for those 4
Correct.
counties. I mean, so certainly the majority of those would be the serious injury crashes, I would guess, not the fatal incidents. But I know there's still a lot.
These are still injuries. These are very serious, and this is a goal of the state to have 0 by 2030. Now, I don't think we're anywhere near that. If we're still going over 1,000, but there is still some kind of positive statistic here, at least this year. Now, of course, King County, which is the state's most populous county, had the most with 780 serious crashes this year. That's still down from 891 last year. And then Snohomish County followed in second there amongst those 4 counties I targeted here.
Target 0 goal, I recall when Traffic Safety Commission first came up with that literally decades ago, if I'm not mistaken.
2000 is when we first started this in the state of Washington.
And it's been kind of a moving target. So like you say, for 2030, and they're nowhere near that. Well, anybody
and of course, when you set that kind of goal, you're going to put the money you think is necessary to reach that goal. And that's millions of dollars in tax dollars. And so that's what we're looking at here is, while there are some improvements, it is still nowhere near where that goal is. And I think that's something that has to be called out, and that's something that's part of the story here. Now, I wanted to hear from experts, so I talked to Thorough Institute senior economist Randall O'Toole, who is an expert on transportation, and that he says that, broadly speaking, there are still being these increase in pedestrian bicycle fatalities that this federal program tries to solve. So this, he says, creates a auto hostile environment, and he talked about how the ways in which the states like Washington, all their jurisdictions across the United States could fix this solution is by maybe looking outside of infrastructure. He told me about a lot of the people that are victims of deaths when it comes to pedestrians are homeless. These are people who are inebriated. They are walking down the street. Carlene, I know that when you visit Seattle, you might see it on busy streets like Mercer. You're seeing these people who are not in a sane state walking across like 5 lanes of ongoing traffic. That's a danger to them. It's a danger to drivers. And that just couldn't be a consideration when we're looking at these statistics here.
Well, and some of the concerns in your article raised by the gentleman who wrote about the bicyclists. We make all these, we spend all this money on dedicated bike lanes, whether it's on city streets or bike lanes across, main thoroughfares, bridges across the lake, that sort of a thing.
That's right.
And so I guess you can call that traffic safety. It certainly is good for the bicyclists, but he said a lot of the accidents that ended up happening with those cyclists are at the intersections anyway, where your dedicated bike lanes aren't going to make a difference.
Currently, I'll just say, because I do ride my bike around Seattle when I can, just because it's easier than finding parking for my car, right?
Yeah.
So it is how it goes around here. So I do like the bicycle lanes because it is better than me going on ongoing traffic. But when you do reach those intersections, you are just back there dealing with the cars and traffic there. That is much more larger than my bike. And you also have to think that bicyclists, I'm not speaking for all of them, but some of them do not obey all traffic laws. They go through those red lights. And I'm not just talking about bicyclists. I'm looking at you, Lime scooters and Lime bikes, those that rent those services to get around, merging in and out of sidewalks onto the streets. It's a danger. It's a risk, and you're just creating more, things to look out for as drivers. And because despite all we have here, Carlene, with the sound transit, all this public transportation, car is the way to go still. There are still people coming in and out of the city, commuting for work at Amazon, Meta, whatever have you. They prefer to drive, as is the case across the country.
I get confused at those bike lane intersections in the city anyway, because then you've got the cyclist that still has the green arrow, right? And the car can't turn. And so I'm looking at don't live downtown. So
right.
I think especially for folks that are from out of town, that maybe don't have those in their metro areas, those that signage can be a little bit
confusing.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I wonder what the stats are since they put those in, because I would think in some cases, since the driver doesn't have the right of way, but the cyclist does at the intersection, you maybe get some people that don't obey that. I wonder if there've been, some collisions at those intersections as a result. But anyway, I digress on that. But what are they going to use the money for? Because you get these, millions of federal dollars that come in. Oftentimes people complain that this gets sucked up into more studies and more.
That's what it is here, Carlene. That's what we're seeing in 2026.
Tell me what they're going to
do. Despite working on this since 2000 in the state, we're still looking at more studies and any kind of surveys to see what funding should go towards. Now, this could include pedestrian crossing improvements, safety data collection. They just want to enhance all of that. But I do note one thing that was interesting. It was in Clark County down there we're talking Vancouver, Washington. We're sitting less than $1 million, but they're launching a pilot program that aims at improving post-crash EMS services. It equips and trains EMS services to provide whole blood transfusions after serious crashes. So it seems like instead of preventing crashes, they're just ready to say let's help those who are, unfortunately, in those circumstances, how we can just help save a life,
right? In that situation where they can get a blood transfusion at the scene of a violent crash.
So, of course, more corridor studies, everything that I've seen since I've started working from the Center Square when we're covering Vision Zero projects, still ongoing with millions of dollars, Carlene.
Well, they spend so much money on the studies. The studies must result in something that tells them, okay, so this is what would work to slow people down here. Oftentimes it's a roundabout or something that'll slow the flow of traffic. Might hate those, but they tend to work.
Right. They slow down traffic for sure.
Yeah, they do. There was I live in the South King County area. There is a stretch on busy military road where they were having many bad accidents, and about a year or so ago put in a gigantic roundabout in the middle of it. It works though. You don't see the big crashes in that area anymore. So things like that actually work, but
those roundabouts are a little tough to renovate or to fix when you have a pothole, because those aren't really streets that you can just close off because it's a major roadway. So that is another thing to think about.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if, in fact, this federal funding coming for more studies and some, hopefully, traffic safety improvements can do something to bring the numbers down, because we still have far too many serious injury and fatal crashes in Washington state. Seems like everybody went crazy during the pandemic and they kept their crazy on. I mean, driving on stretches of I-5 where I live in the Federal Way area is always a danger, literally, every single time. So, well, thank you for reporting on this. I appreciate it. I would encourage folks who are interested in this to check out Spencer Pauly's article at thecentersquare.com/Washington. For now, along with Spencer Pauly, I'm Carlene Johnson. This has been another episode of Washington in Focus.